Hey, this is a video for, I suppose, my future self. It's late August at the moment, and I think I'm coming to the end of the tomato season here in the garden. And I wanted to make a video for myself just so I know next year what tomatoes were successful, which ones didn't do too well, or the growing conditions that I did in this year. So I have a bunch of tomatoes with me here today, and I just want to talk about them. Again, this video really is mostly for myself, so if anybody's watching, it might be helpful for you, but the main purpose of this is to remind myself. So this year I have grown almost exclusively Italian varieties. I've grown 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, maybe 11 different varieties. And so, like I said, I'm going to talk a little bit about them, what I found was challenging, what went well, what didn't work, and so on and so on. A few things to remember is that everything was grown in an organic way. I didn't use any synthetic fertilizers, and I didn't really use many fertilizers. I started off maybe in the whole season 2 rounds of fertilizing, and that was Eco Thrive Charge. That's what I used. And I actually found it to do really, really well. And I think I should have continued using it. I just other things got on top of me, and so I haven't used it as much as I should have. So yeah, so I've grown these 12 varieties in 2 different spaces. The back garden, which has a greenhouse, but it doesn't have lots of light. So it consistently, the temperatures there were more consistent. And then the front garden, which has way more light, in June it would have probably around 10 hours of light a day, whereas the greenhouse in June would probably have maybe 8 at a push, 7, 8. But the temperature is steadier in the greenhouse. In the front though, there is a patio and it gets really, really hot. So when it's maybe 20 degrees in general in the area, on the patio it's like 25, 26, 27. It gets a lot hotter out there. So those are the 2 growing spaces. The greenhouse was started, everything was done a month earlier than the front garden. And in the front garden, I didn't really water, but I did use the auto pot system, which has been fantastic. Generally speaking, the results have been better in the front garden. Fruit has been smaller, but fruit has ripened earlier, I suppose, or at has a greater quality. But yeah, let's start talking about what I've got here. So to kind of start, I guess I'll go to my favorites so that I don't have to watch this whole video back again in February next year. 2 of my favorites are the Pianolot varieties, which I've spoken a lot about on social media. This is called Pianolot Giallo, and this is Pianolot Giallo, and this one is Pianolot del Vesuvio. I guess I don't want to put anybody off, so maybe I'll use the English name, Pianolot del Vesuvio, but that sounds a bit silly, doesn't it? These 2 varieties have been really, really fantastic. I've got a bunch of them hanging up there, waiting for those to all ripen, and I'm going to make some lovely tomato sauce with those. But these 2 have been fantastic. I've grown them mostly in the front garden, and they've done really, really well there, despite being a month behind the ones in the greenhouse. Maybe I wouldn't grow them again in the greenhouse, but just because the light there isn't as much as I'd want it to be. But these are fantastic, and I will definitely want to grow them again. They have a really good balance of acidity and sweetness, and once they dry properly, they have a really nice thin skin, and they hold for a long time, so you can have them hanging up for literally months, as long as it's a cool space. It can be months. Apparently sometimes they can go from August all the way down to the next May. So in terms of lifespan, I think those are a really great one. So that's a big yes for me. Next one was Frankie's red pear. This is a small version because, like I said, I'm at the end of my tomato period here, my tomato growing season. This is a really small one, Frankie's red pear. None of them have looked like pears. But I do like them. They're a bit meatier than everything else, or tomatoes of a similar size. They are supposed to be much bigger. The first few ones that we harvested were maybe triple the size, quadruple the size. I really like them, and the thing I like about them is that they were the earliest tomato that we had. Even the ones in the front garden were earlier than the ones in the back garden, despite being a month behind. So these would go again, but I've also found that once they do their thing and they produce, then they kind of just fizzle out. But I would like to do this again. Next up is, I think, the only non-Italian variety that I have, which is called Ildi, Ildi. I think it might be like Croatian. I really don't know. But these are a tiny little, like Millefleur, you know, almost like Barry's Crazy Cherry. What's it called? Barry's Crazy Cherry? I don't know. They're small, and they have about, you know, 50 to 80 fruits on a single truss, so that they're one of those kind of varieties which has loads of stuff going on. I think if you can get them all pollinated, whether by hand or with insects or maybe by the wind, they're cool to have. Would I have them again? I don't know. They're a really nice addition when I'm roasting tomatoes, when I'm roasting some of the larger tomatoes or the cooler looking tomatoes. I like to throw a few of them in because it adds a splash of colour. It's like just a little pearl of yellow amongst the red. Or when I'm making sauces, I like to throw a few in. They are very sweet. They're really nice to eat fresh, for sure. So if you like eating tomatoes in salads or something, I think it's a really cool variety because, again, you don't need to pick all 80 of them off the truss. You can pick just a few. So I suppose I would do it again. Yeah, I would. Next one is called Principe Borgesa. Principe Borghese. I don't know if I would grow this again. It's just, to me, it seems like a standard cherry tomato. I think if I'm growing the Pianolo, which is bigger in size, I would much prefer this. But if I'm growing Pianolo and Ildi, which is these two, I feel like there's not really much need for this because this one is really sweet, really sweet, and this one's really good for sauces. So I think in terms of culling stuff, I think this would be the first one that has to, unfortunately, go. Not a bad tomato, but I just think I've got other options which I personally prefer. If, however, you're still watching this and you're growing tomatoes yourself and thinking about an easy one to find, and something which is just a good cherry tomato, this is a good variety to start with, trouble-free. So for me, I'll probably give it a miss, but it doesn't mean it's a bad tomato. Next up is this one called, I don't know if it's called Canne Torre or Torre Canne, named after the place in Puglia. But this has been cool. I think this one's really cool. I've really enjoyed this one because it's bigger than the Pianolo and much bigger than the Principe Borghese in terms of size. And the other thing about this is that it's split resistant. So in England here, we typically do get a lot of rain. This summer we've had no rain at all. But this is split resistant, meaning that if we have a heavy summer, heavy rainfall, it won't split. And that's kind of, you know, it does happen in England. It does rain, especially this season when it's been so dry, and then we had big downpour, a couple of them. I had to pick everything, but it would be cool to know that I could leave it and this wouldn't get split. Will I do this again? Yes. They grow really nicely on a truss, and they just crack on with it. They just do their thing, trouble-free. I've not had any problem. I actually really like this one. I use this in quick sauces, but you can also chop it up nicely. It's quite thick, it's quite meaty. You can put it in salads really nicely. Moving on, the one that I've grown beside this one is the Koberino. This is just a truss. I mean, I've picked a bunch of them already. Koberino to me is like a small San Marzano. It's like it's a plum tomato. So let me show you. It's a plum tomato, but it's like not as big as the San Marzano, and it's got similar really good qualities. Good for sauces, good for eating fresh. Again, quite meaty. It's got a chunk to it. Let me see my notes. Yeah, again from southern Italy, from just south of Mount Vesuvius, where San Marzano is typically classically grown. Yeah, low acidity as well. This one for me is a keeper. I would grow this again. I'd really like to grow this again, actually, because it was earlier than San Marzano. So while it has similar flavors and similar qualities, it means that for me, I found that it grows a lot earlier than San Marzano, which obviously is a really highly coveted tomato. Moving on to Sano itself, these are small ones that are grown in the autopot system. I should have fertilized a bit better, but the Sano have these little dips to them at the bottom, whereas the Koberino is smaller in size, but it's just the round plum tomato. I'm yet to try these, but you know, their reputation is incredible. Again, obviously I'm growing these in London and not on the side of a volcano. Same with the pianola. You know, these tomatoes are protected to be sold in southern Italy, specifically around the volcano of Vesuvius, which is just outside Naples, or Naples is just outside the volcano. These I'm saving these up to have enough of them to have a lovely sauce. The ones in the greenhouse are maybe about that big. Let me show you. The ones in the greenhouse are about that big. They're really, really big. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that tastes. These are known to be good for roasting and really excellent for sauces. Peel them if you can, chop them up, and then just let that simmer. A bit of garlic, a bit of basil, a bit of salt, and Evo, of course, and you should be good. But definitely, I want to grow these again, but I have 100% noticed that this is the latest, the slowest move out of everything that I've grown this year. Like I said, I've not yet eaten one, and we're late August, and I've eaten everything else. But yes, I would do these again on the basis that I can grow the Koberino alongside them, because smaller, yes, but similar textures, similar taste, similar attributes. Next up, we have this one, which I kind of forgot about completely. It's called Tondo con Pizzo. Now, this is a weird one because you can see a bit of ribbing over here, but you can also see that it's got this little pinch at the end, little nipple at the end, similar to the piano. I don't know if they're related varieties or not. I don't know what's gone on there, but I haven't tried this one yet because if I'm honest, I forgot that I grew it and I only remembered this morning. So I've picked some of these today, which I will eat, unless it's, you know, really, 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 really amazing, which it probably won't be. I don't think I'm going to grow it again just because I've got the pianola, and I prefer the pianola. Well, I say I prefer. I'm not probably eating these. I just know this is like a top tier tomato, so I probably won't do this one again. Then we move over to this one is called Cuore di Bue, or you know, we have it in different languages, like just a standard ox heart tomato. This, for some reason, is the only one of all the tomatoes which has grown in a pink color and stayed pink. I don't know why. This is a really, really, really small one. You know, it should be about that big. But like I said, I'm coming to the end of the season. I don't think I would do this again. I didn't really enjoy it. It didn't give me much that anything else was giving me. I preferred Frankie's red pear. Frankie's red pear was earlier than this one in terms of the ribbing, you know, for something that looks cool. The other Costa varieties, Italian varieties, I thought they were more enjoyable to eat. So I probably wouldn't do this one again. Again, this is a bad representation because it's a tiny pear, a tiny fruit. Moving over, we have Costa di Parma, which is a ribbed variety. These things look really gnarly, and a few years ago I was like, nah man, I don't want to grow that. But I think these are really, really awesome. Again, coming to the end of the season for me, I've grown two Costa varieties, one from Parma, one from Florence. But the thing about these is when you cut them open, they look really cool. Let's try and do that now. Obviously, it's still a bit unripe there. But I'll take a smaller one. You know, they have this really lovely cross section, especially when you have more ribbing. It looks really, really excellent. Let's try this. This one's quite watery because I've overwatered the greenhouse, which is foolish. My bad. But a bit of salt again, or you could roast them with garlic and a bit of basil and you'll be alright. So out of the two Costa varieties, Parma and Fiorentino, I think I'd probably try them both again. I really enjoyed having them. They look completely different to everything else that I have here. So yeah, I would probably do them again. So far the ones that I won't do: Principe Borgesa, Cuore di Bue, and Tonno con Pizza. Those are the three that I don't think I would do. And then I have this one here. I don't even know what it is. It looks incredible. I think that's the most tomatoes I've ever grown from a single truss. I mean, look at that. I don't know what it is. This was labelled as Datterini. But it's clearly not Datterini. Maybe it's an Orange Beauty. I really have no idea. They start off slightly ribbed and then they grow out. I don't know what that is, but I definitely want to grow that again just because there's so many tomatoes. Like, I completely neglected that. And there's so many tomatoes on that one. So I will grow those again. So yeah, this is what I'm growing. I can show you a close-up. This is what I've been growing this year. Obviously it's the end of the season, so everything's looking a bit smaller. But the ones that I probably wouldn't do again, Principe Borghese, Red Cuore di Bue, and Tonno con Pizza. So that leaves me with about, I don't know what, 8 varieties. And I suppose for myself, growing in the front garden is great because there's more heat there, there's more intensity there, and there's more sunlight. So that's my review for tomatoes in 2022. If anybody is still watching, congratulations. If you have any questions, I will answer whatever you need me to answer. Just send me a message. But yeah, that's that. If I had to pick an overall winner, I really like the Piano Giallo out of all of them. I really like that one. But I also think the Koberino are pretty solid for an all-rounder. If you like little sweet things, these ones are cool. The Ildi are cool, but the Piano are just as sweet, but they don't produce as many. Cool. Any questions, give me a shout, and that concludes this review.